A lot of people wonder what the difference is between Simchat Torah, the holiday that's at the tail end of Sukkot, and Shavuot, because on Shavuot we celebrate getting the Torah, the 6th of Sivan, and on Simchat Torah we dance around with the Torah, we celebrate the Torah. So yes, on Shavuot is the actual date we got the Torah at Har Sinai, and Simchat Torah is the time where we dance with the Torah because we finished reading the 5 books of Moses. But why don't we dance on Shavuot? Why don't we celebrate on Shavuot the same way we celebrate on Simchat Torah? What's the point of having the holiday of Shavuot being so serious and Simchat Torah being so happy and joyous? It's fun, you go to shul, there's candy. Why that difference? And I heard a really beautiful story to explain that. There was once a king who had a single daughter, and he loved her very much, and he was looking to find a husband for her. So he took all of his ministers, all of his cabinet people, everyone that was there with him in his government, and he said, I want you guys to scatter all across the country and look for someone that's appropriate for my daughter. But it shouldn't just be anyone. It should be someone who's smart and has good judgment and is able to really understand people and is kind and gracious, but still is able to hold firm. And so, they all go across the nation and they go and look for a husband for the king's daughter. They go from place to place, and they're all looking, some are looking at the best universities, some are looking at the richest people. Everyone has their own thing they're looking for. Anyhow, one of the ministers is walking across the field, and he sees a peasant, a farmer, working in the field. He's covered with mud, and he starts speaking to him, and clearly the guy is very smart, and he's just, the minister is taken aback. Like, this is exactly the guy that the king would want. This is someone who fits perfectly the description for marrying the king's daughter. So he comes back to the king. He says, listen, I have a guy for you, but he's a peasant. He comes from a simple family. He's nothing fancy, but I think he'd make a great match for your daughter. I think he's really smart and capable. And the king says, all right, let me, I'm not going to judge. Let me see him for myself. And one day, while the peasant is working in the field and he's covered with mud and he's really busy taking care of the plants and the field and everything, a fancy coach wagon stops next to him and says, come right on, we're going to the king. And he's like, what do you mean, come right on? I'm barely prepared. I'm covered with mud. I don't have the best clothing. And they say, no, the king is waiting. Let's go. You gotta come. So he gets on the wagon, and they bring him right in front of the king. He comes to the king, and the king starts asking him. He's like, what do you think about my recent economic policies? And the peasant is really able to answer in a really smart and intelligent way. He's like, explaining, and the king asks him, well, what do you think about my foreign policy? And he weighs in, he tells him exactly what he thinks, and you can see from his body language, the king sees really this is exactly the guy, and this is the way it was done back then. The king tells him, listen, you have 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we're having a wedding, and you're going to marry my daughter. And he says, all right, 2 weeks, I'll marry your daughter. And the king says, don't worry, I'll tell your family, we'll figure it out, but you now need to get a haircut, you need to be dressed properly, you need to be taught how the proper manners used in king's courts are. And so the peasant is, he gets all prepared, gets married. They have a beautiful wedding, celebrations, music, and they have this wonderful wedding. They get married, and indeed he makes for a wonderful husband for the king's daughter. A year later, the peasant comes to the king, and he says to him, listen, I want you to make me another celebration, another wedding. Really? Why? The king doesn't know. Why do you want another celebration? He says, you had a wedding a year ago already, so why have another wedding? Peasant says, listen, I'm a simple peasant. I was working in the fields, And I suddenly heard that the king wants me to marry his daughter. So I thought maybe, why is the king wanting me to marry his daughter? Maybe there's a problem there. Maybe she's not healthy, or whatever it is. Maybe the king wants me to marry his daughter not for the best reason. And so, I got married. You told me to. I got married, and I see that she looks beautiful. I thought maybe there's something that I'm gonna notice more over time, but no, indeed, your daughter is wonderful, and inside and out is just magnificent. And so he says to the king, listen, at the actual wedding, I was nervous. I wasn't really able to celebrate properly, but now that I know your daughter, I'm really able to be happy. And so that's the idea of Simchat Torah. On Shavuos, we got the Torah on Vav Sivan. We got the Torah from Hashem at Har Sinai. We said Nasev and Nishma. No matter what it is, we're going to take it. But what happened on Simchat Torah is, after we spent so much time learning the Torah and going through the different parshiot and really getting to know it, we say, now that we know the sweetness, the beauty of the Torah, now we celebrate Simchat Torah. So that's what Simchat Torah is all about, and that's how it differs from Shavuos, from the holiday where we got the Torah, where we said Nasev and Nishma. So really, let's all have a beautiful Simchat Torah and celebrate properly, and it should be a happy